This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet. Check out our website at www.cprworldwidemedia.com and our Facebook page at facebook.com/CPR Worldwide Media. This is CPR Media Network, coming to you live from the USA.
Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
I believe that every single one of us has what it takes
to win back-to-back gold.
Ski faster than any other human.
I believe it's possible to overcome fear.
I believe
it's possible to destroy stereotypes.
To start over, to be the toughest,
the strongest,
the bravest in the world. And when we work together, we can make it all possible. That's why Citi has donated $500,000 to its Every Step of the Way program, an initiative created to help future athletes reach their full potential through sport programs that inspire us. Like figure skating in Harlem.
Like youth enrichment services. Like Team for Tomorrow.
The Team USA Stay on the Slopes initiative. Now spread the word and help decide how much of that money goes toward
offering personal support and financial assistance to Olympians in need.
Promoting the growth of hockey in the U.S.
Expanding the sport of luge into new regions.
Support for wounded service members. Join Team Citi and let's turn a world of potential into reality.
Go to citi.com/everystep and help decide where the money goes.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my God. It's not even real, okay? It's just a game.
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
In time. These guys are morons! America, Allah.
Dumb and Dumber 2. Rated PG-13. Now playing.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. Your host will be Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and Countermand Amendment. Our special legislator guests will be discussing important issues in their states that relate to federal encroachment on states' rights. The nonpartisan Article 5 single-issue countermand amendment can remedy many states' issues peacefully without the consent of Congress, the courts, or the executive branch. We will reclaim our constitutional republic soon. The nonpartisan countermand amendment is the missing piece of the Article 5 puzzle. Our nation is coming apart at the seams. So, we are countermanding.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to briefly mention one of our founders that's not really brought out much, and he actually had very strong intuitions of what was needed to take care of our country. And his name was George Mason. He played a big part in the Constitution being written, including insisting on Article 5 for the amendments to protect the states. However, he would not sign the Constitution. And his objections were that it provided no Bill of Rights. Now, that hadn't been discussed, but they were not put in, and he would not sign it. He drafted a Bill of Rights, and that was used for the final draft. He had input into that. He also felt the office of the president was too powerful and might easily develop into a dictatorship with power to abuse the people. Now, I thought that one, it's like he's omniscient. He also thought the office of vice president was superfluous. And he also wanted a specific provision for a cabinet or council to guide the president. And then this is the one that really got me interested. He also saw the federal courts as a very real threat to the independence and integrity of the state courts. He anticipated the encroachment of the stronger national system on the prerogatives of the individual state judiciaries. Here again, his concerns were verified by the passing of time. And we know that it's one of our big problems today that the court has been very, very active and has actually done their own interpretation. Like the general welfare clause became specific welfare, and that's why we have this huge welfare state. And I could go on with a lot of examples. But he was a very interesting man, and we will probably talk some more about him in the second hour, but I wanted to introduce you to him. Welcome to our State Legislators Roundtable. I am Sandy Toth, and I am the Executive Coordinator and Georgia State Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. Roundtable discussions with state legislators and community leaders center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of them safely and quickly. This is not a gotcha forum. We are not here to back our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of issues important to our guests and their states. Subjects can include taxation, criminal law, energy policies, healthcare, social issues, federal land grabs, court decisions, education, executive orders, unfunded liabilities, EPA, BLM, IRS, and more. You will learn how to protect your enumerated rights in the Constitution and how the states and their citizens can identify, define, and protect their unenumerated rights in the 9th and 10th Amendments peacefully and permanently. Roundtable members tonight, besides myself, are Mike Coons, National Director and Alaska State Director, and Kelly Gordon, National Coordinator and Texas State Director and Producer. We now have 15 sponsored states for the nonpartisan Article 5 Countermand Amendment. We could have a total of 20 sponsored states for the amendment in about 30 days. And we're looking forward very much into getting into that. We have had the honor of meeting many of the country's leading legislators on the State Legislators Roundtable. I see these state legislators more as statesmen than politicians. They are trying to find solutions to the many problems their citizens face as they relate to encroachment by the federal government. The State Legislators Roundtable has been growing. We have become one of the fastest growing radio talk shows on the internet. To learn more about the Countermand Amendment, go to countermands.us. Also call your friends, relatives, and associates. Tell them to tune into this show at cprworldwidemedia.com, live radio. They will also be able to participate in our online chat as well. Our roundtable can also be heard on pnntalkradio.com. And I'm going to add one thing about meeting all these different legislators from different states. I have learned so much about what the different states' problems are with federal encroachment and how bad it's gotten, that it's been a real education. Tonight's special guest is the Honorable Bill Cowsert. He's a senator from the great state of Georgia. Senator Cowsert is an attorney, and he was sworn into the Georgia Senate in 2007. He is chairman of the Higher Education Committee, member of Appropriations Committee, member of the Judiciary, and secretary of the Natural Resources and the Environment Committee. So he has quite a distinguished record of serving Georgia, and he's one of the more senior senators. Welcome to our State Legislators Roundtable. It's our great honor to have you. You are free to present any matter of importance to you and your state as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's my pleasure to be with you. What got me interested in the movement, so to speak, the Article 5 process, is the problems with our budget deficit nationally. And I got involved trying to get enough states to file Article 5 petitions to ask for a balanced budget amendment. It's really been a long process for me in Georgia. It took us 3 years, but finally last year we passed our application for a balanced budget amendment, single subject balanced budget amendment, Article 5 convention. And we're now up to 24 states nationwide that have passed that, so we're trying to get to the 34 number. And I think we'll get there hopefully this year or next year. And it's just one of those things in the Constitution that gives states their power to combat the federal government's aggressiveness and overbearing nature. So it's a neat journey. I'm really happy to learn about your Countermand Amendment and other groups out there nationwide that are trying to come up with different subject matters for an Article 5 convention.
We also have a balanced budget ready to go too, balanced budget amendment. The trick of it is our little missing piece of the puzzle is that delegate resolution that controls the convention and those delegates. We don't want the delegates to go to the convention to write the amendment. We feel that our state legislatures need to know why those delegates are there and what they're going to be doing there, not just, send them helter-skelter. That concerns me.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point, and that's one of the obstacles that we had to overcome in Georgia to pass our balanced budget amendment application. Of course, you call that an application to Congress to call for an Article 5 convention, and most states have done that multiple times on different subject matters. And one of the big reservations that you have to get past is this fear of a runaway convention, that the delegates will go wild once they get there and propose amendments that are maybe not contemplated by the folks calling for an Article 5 convention.
Right.
To combat that in Georgia, excuse me?
Have you had a chance to read our delegate resolution with the Countermand?
I haven't read your delegate resolution, but we passed what we call a Delegate Limitation Act in Georgia that was kind of contemporaneously with our balanced budget amendment application, and it gives the state legislature extreme control over our delegates in Georgia. They must swear on oath that they will obey the instructions given them by the state legislature when they are elected or selected as delegates to this Article 5 convention. And we have the right, first of all, it's a crime if they exceed the authority given to them by the state legislature. Secondly, they can be recalled by the state legislature and replaced with delegates who will fulfill the mission or the sort of directives of the state legislature. And of course, our instructions are that they are to consider only a balanced budget amendment and not any other amendments. I think that's a very useful tool that can give control over the delegates to the state legislatures where it belongs.
Exactly.
Well, meanwhile, to get back to the original subject, what do you think are the problems that Georgia faces besides the spending problem?
Well, from the state perspective, what your focus has been is concerns of sort of federal overreach into what should be state affairs. And, obviously, Obamacare is one of the greatest of those type of issues where the federal government has greatly exceeded its authority that's granted under the Constitution. We're dealing with that in Georgia just like many other states are, and the state of Georgia has decided not to buy into the Medicaid expansion called for under the Affordable Care Act. It's just way too expensive for us to be able to afford to do that, and is not the solution to any of the health care problems. But we have calculated that state of Georgia, if we were to agree to the expansion of Medicaid that is contemplated by the Affordable Care Act, it would cost us at least $5 billion over the next 10 years, and we don't want to participate in that, don't have the financial means to participate in that drastic expansion of welfare programs.
Senator Cowsert, this is Mike Coons. That is something that is near and dear to my heart, because unfortunately we got a new governor here, Bill Walker, who beat out our previous governor, Sean Parnell, and Sean had turned down the Medicaid expansion. And what the feds wanted to do was to add 40,000. We got a population here of just under 700,000 people, and that was going to add another 40,000 people to the rolls. Unfortunately, Bill Walker, that's one of his signature issues. That's the first thing he's going to do is to accept that Medicaid expansion. Roughly speaking, where we're looking at 40,000 adding on. Do you have any idea how many were going to be added on in Georgia if that was were to happen?
Try 600,000. If we have
that's the size of my state.
We're a state of 10 million, and of course we have a good Medicaid program as it is, but this is a drastic, vast expansion of it, and we're looking at adding 600,000 more people to the rolls if we were to agree to the expansion. So that's a no-go in Georgia, and fortunately we have a Republican governor, Nathan Deal, that very early on recognized the trap of buying into the expansion. He had served 18 years in Congress, had opposed the Affordable Care Act as a congressman, and understood the implications. And when it passed and got upheld, he was out front to oppose that expansion and explained why. He understood how it can bankrupt your state. We went so far as this past legislative session to pass legislation that in the future reserved that decision to the state legislature as to whether or not to ever expand the Medicaid program. Many states, it's left up to the chief executive, to the governor, or the Department of Community Health, or whatever they may call it in the various states, to decide the parameters of the Medicaid program. We made certain in Georgia that if there's any expansion that may take place in the future, that it's going to be approved by the legislature, not by the executive branch, the people most responsive to their constituents. And I think if every other state or many other states will follow suit, you'll see a much less likelihood of the expansion of the Medicaid programs if that decision is made by the legislative branch rather than the executive branch.
What about energy in Georgia? I know the EPA regulations have forced Georgia Power to shut down some of the coal-fired plants.
That's true. Yeah, it's greatly interfered with their ability to provide, the power grid to our state. It's imposed such an expense on using any coal-fired plants that's required them to go other routes. And we've been fortunate that natural gas has been inexpensive recently, and so we've been able to expand those type of plants. And we're building 2 new nuclear power plants in Georgia, and the expense is just mind-boggling. We're thinking $12 to $14 billion to build those plants. So it is a big financial burden on states to have to comply with some of these nonsensical energy policies of the federal government.
Wouldn't you like to stop those?
Yeah, that would be. You know, there are a lot of things that are very frustrating about serving in a state legislature because so many issues have been co-opted by the federal government, and they're determined in Washington, D.C. rather than in the various states around the country. So it's very frustrating at times to have to be controlled from Washington, D.C.
Well, that's one of the reasons. And by the way, just to give you a little background, the Countermand Amendment was really developed by our Executive Director, Charles Kacprowicz, and we the people across the country contributing to it until we fine-tuned it. And if you have read the Countermand at all, Section 2, I have so many reference papers here. I'm going to go crazy. Between George Mason and everything else. And I lost the Countermand. What I was going to say is that Section 2 of the Countermand basically, allows 60% of the states, 30 states, to countermand and rescind any congressional statute, judicial decision, executive order, treaty, government agency's regulatory ruling, or any other government, non-government mandate, including excessive spending and credit, which would temporarily allow states to put a curb, like on the debt limit, if they wanted to, using the countermand. They can use the countermand when, in the opinion of 60% of the state legislatures, the law or ruling adversely affects their state's interest. When the countermand threshold has been reached, the law or ruling shall be immediately and automatically nullified and repealed, and this shall apply to existing laws and rulings as well as anything in the future. Now, and this was kind of something that came from me, because I heard so many people in the Tea Party talking about the fact that why another amendment? They don't follow the ones we have now. So we have written in a penalty. And Section 5 says, any elected or non-elected government official or any non-government individual organization who intentionally obstructs or prevents the implementation of any provision in this article shall have committed a criminal offense, and it shall be subject to impeachment when applicable and criminal prosecution, and upon conviction serve up to 5 years in prison. Now, if the federal officials do not do anything to this, anyone who's violated it, then individual states shall have authority to prosecute violators of this article under state laws in the absence of federal prosecution after 90 days from the date of the alleged violation. Of course, you can't have multiple prosecutions. States would have to agree one state would be the leader on that, all others could join into one criminal action. So, in effect, we're telling the United States government, we're sick and tired of you not following the Constitution. So we have now given the states, this is really horrible. I did not realize that the federal government controls 50% of the land west of the Mississippi.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
What percentage in Alaska, Mike?
67% of the state of Alaska is owned by the federal government.
Nevada. The beautiful thing about the Countermand Amendment is if it had been in place already, Obamacare never would have made it. Never. We could have easily
That's
had
for
30
sure.
states would step up and say, no way.
And the other thing, Senator Cowsert, is, and I know that we in our conversation that we had here last month, your key, as you said earlier, was the balanced budget amendment and trying to get that through, which you now have gotten through. One of the beauties of Article 5 is there's no limitation on number of applications and types of applications for different types of amendments that can be done. So Georgia could do an application for the Countermand Amendment as well, now that you got the balanced budget one passed through. And then but I want to kind of ask a question on the balanced budget amendment, what Georgia has done on that, because it correlates directly with what we're doing here. And that is, has the state of Georgia written and approved a balanced budget amendment that you want to see as that amendment going forward, or are the instructions to the delegates to go down to the convention and have them write that balanced budget amendment?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that question, because we did not put the specific language in our balanced budget amendment application. We left that to the delegates, but we gave some relatively specific instructions, and those were essentially that in any given year, the expenditures shall not exceed the revenues received unless there's a natural emergency or state of war. So we left exceptions there and some flexibility to deal with those type of emergencies that might come up, so we don't completely tie ourselves down in a situation where we needed to have some flexibility. But we left it up to the delegates to do the specific drafting and in that particular application that I sponsored. It was weird. The same year that I finally got mine passed, which was 2014, the Convention of the States movement, which you're probably familiar with, Mike, got going, and they passed a separate Article 5 application for the Convention of the States, and it called for numerous things, one of which is a balanced budget amendment, but also further restrictions on the federal government's powers and term limits on federal office holders. And it didn't give specific instructions either.
Right, and here's the contention, and Georgia's not the only one we're running into this. I've talked to a senator up in Michigan. What we're advocating, the methodology that we're advocating, let's just say for argument's sake, let's just take that. Let's say we're doing the balanced budget amendment. If those 34 states that are making applications were to do what we've designed, where our delegate resolution is basically a two-part, well, actually a three-part thing. The first part is the two whereases. Whereas the first whereas is that the convention will be under Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. The convention shall be a Republican form of convention, and all states have equal standing, which is one state, one vote, and majority vote. So all we need is 26 states or more to pass anything out of the convention. Number two is the delegates are ambassadors to the state, and they don't basically what it says is they don't breathe until you say breathe. Then it lays out the more mundane aspects of the convention, as far as president and oath and responsibilities to the delegates, etc. And then with that, combined with that, is the approved amendment language. And the beauty of that versus sending folks down even with specific instructions to write an amendment is that over this time frame, we're talking probably a year, maybe 2 years at the most, we're hoping a year, that those states then had the ability to write that particular amendment the way they want it written. So, and with our technology today, with internet and telephone and faxing and instant messaging, the whole 9 yards, you can be talking to other states now without really.
Mike,
you got to be kind of concerned with Article 1, Section 10. Go ahead.
I need you to hold that thought. We need to go on a short station break, and I want to invite our listeners to visit our website at www.countermands.us, and we will be right back after a short break.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
My name is Christopher Perkins, Captain, United States Marine Corps. I spent 9 years in the Marines and led a team in Al-Ramadi, Iraq that risked its lives daily. Today, I'm a managing director at Citi, where I oversee a global team that provides safeguards for the $700 trillion derivatives industry.
Veterans, many of them have the right skills to be great bankers. And when they come in, they know how to make decisions, they know how to take risks, they know how to multitask. All of those things make them really great colleagues.
Just like we would go out onto the streets of Iraq, we would do an analysis of what risk we're taking and thinking about ways to mitigate it. It's no different here.
That makes them extremely valuable, and that's why we want them here helping our clients.
This industry requires our clients' trust. It requires a high degree of integrity. And so, just like the Marine Corps, your reputation is what it is, and your word is very important.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my God. It's not even real, okay? It's just a game.
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13. Now playing.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome
Okay,
to the State
go ahead, Mike.
Roundtable.
Okay, in response to your question, Senator, unfortunately, Senator McCoon hasn't called in.
Okay.
I'm sorry that it's my other phone. Anyway, what we were
sit on it, Mike.
If we have the if we have these states all doing, so with the big issue is Article 1, Section 10, which means it says that no state shall, without Congress's approval, enter into a compact or agreement. So you kind of got to watch out for that one a little bit. But with the technology that we have today, every state that wants to have an amendment, be it the Countermand Amendment or be it the Balanced Budget Amendment, can look at these amendments, like what we've done with the Countermand Amendment. We've already written it. It would be the matter of we're submitting it to the states for passage. Or let's say, Georgia, you want to write a Balanced Budget Amendment, or you can use the Balanced Budget Amendment that we've written. Hold on a second. Dad, let me call you back. I'm in the middle of a radio show. I'll get him off the phone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because my dad will call over and over again. Anyway, so that what happens is, so when this gets to the convention, when you get to that 34th, and you have, let's say, 26 states that have pre-written that amendment with those delegates going down there and their main issue is to vote for that amendment. Now, let's say that you have a few words here, a few phrases there, slightly different, let's say on your Balanced Budget Amendment from the other 30 states, let's say, let's throw out some numbers. Then that's where the delegates sit down and they work out and they try to come up with a compromise on that verbiage. Now, within the Delegate Resolution, it also sets it up so that the state legislatures would set up a Senate and House conference committee that would be overseeing and are given authority to make decisions based on the input and questions from the delegates. So the delegates come back and say, this is the compromise that has been reached from these 30 states that have submitted these different amendments. Get it to you. You guys take a look at it and you say, yes, we can live with that, or no, we can't live with that. And you send them back in instructions. Now, if you say no, then they have to vote no, and then that doesn't get that 26th vote. It doesn't pass, and they can still do it. But by that point in time, this convention can last a week at the most, a week or 2 weeks at the very most. But if you're going down with the delegates going to go down with concepts of what the legislature wants, and are going to have to sit down, and you're going to have 50 states coming down, and all these delegates, and God only knows the number. We have no idea what that's going to be. It could be upwards of 500 some odd people trying to develop this. This could take months. Do we want to go months? Because American people have very short patience and have a very short timeline. Of course, the media is the same way. Wouldn't it be better to have something where you can pre-do it, pre-approved it, and going down there and having this thing done in a week? That does the other thing of it takes the wind out of the sails of the John Birchers and the Shiveleys and the Eagle Forum folks that are all afraid of a con of people going down there doing crazy things. You see where we're coming from, sir?
Let me cut in and go to talk a little bit about this, because one of the issues that Charles talks about, I'm going to get this out because it's very, very important, is the issue of the sovereignty of the state legislators. Now, Article 5 actually implies that the legislatures should be writing the amendments because of the way it's worded.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say the legislatures write them.
The legislature
the convention writes them.
No, shall propose them. It says nothing about being written at the convention. Now, that's one thing. The other thing is the sovereignty of the states comes from the Articles of Confederation. The second article in the Articles of Confederation was sovereignty of the states. And they fought to get Article 5 in because they wanted the states to control the federal government and to have that sovereignty. And if you think about it, whether Congress proposes an amendment or the states do, the states are the only ones who can ratify, which means they have the final say. So if you turn it loose with delegates, and especially if there's like multiple amendments being written, you could have, after 6 months, a bunch of things come out that the states are going to look at and go, we don't like that. And nothing or only part may get ratified anyway after a couple years of wrangling. By doing it in the method that Charles has set up, is that you're pre-approving the amendment in your delegate resolution, okay? And we've had a lot of states looking at this now, and the legislators that we have talked to and that have come on board really love the countermand, because every state has so many problems with federal encroachments that they are dying to see this get through. So we started off with this one, and if we can get states signing on to the amendment, it basically is written, unless Mike said, you know, a state wants to offer a little adjustment or change a little wording here or there. But basically, you've got the amendment written, and it's being passed by the state legislatures. They're the ultimate sovereignty. And like I said, going forward, you then can work on getting others pre-approved. And we have already had legislators say they want to get on a committee to work across the states and work on the next amendment. And then there's also the issues when the Countermand Amendment is ratified, we're going to need the legislators to cooperate to decide which things they want to countermand first, whether it's energy regulations that are killing the coal industry. I know there's problems with energy in Alaska being tied up by the federal government. A lot of states have the problem. The federal land grabs, Obamacare, and I think states are going to be kept busy doing countermands. But
I like the countermand because it does address so many different issues.
Mm-hmm.
And also it is important that, for me, I want everything to be pre-approved by my state legislature before those delegates get to the chamber and sit down at the table. I feel that their work should be in front of them already, approved by the state legislatures. And the other thing is it seems that the federal government is playing a lot of divide and conquer, and the states are always on defense. And you were speaking about the land grabs. Often there's some very important resources that are underneath those land grabs, I've noticed. And
yeah, ties up a lot of our natural resources.
Yes, and they're taking away from our states and our state's ability to care for their citizens and for their state. And
the other thing is a good contemporary example. By the way, I want to commend Georgia. You know, being a resident, I'm kind of proud that Georgia joined in with the lawsuit against what our president did with immigration with his executive order. Okay.
I talked to our Attorney General just about 30 minutes ago about that, and we're very excited about the prospects of that lawsuit.
Yeah, good. But you see, when the states do that and they go into court, then you've got a long drawn-out battle in the court situation. You know, but I know you got to do something. You can't just sit still and let him do everything.
Right.
But the point is, you got that. You could have decisions with our wonderful judiciary that goes against what the states want. It's happened before with immigration, with Arizona, and there's states who've had their voter ID laws knocked down. Now, if the Countermand Amendment had been ratified, all we'd have to do is encourage 30 states to countermand the executive order. And bye-bye, President Obama.
That's right. Well, one problem I was going to tell you earlier, there was another bill that we passed in Georgia last year called the Compact for America. And it is also a mechanism to get to a balanced budget amendment, and it does have the exact language of the amendment. And the idea is very similar to what you guys are discussing, is that if 34 states pass identical language, then the convention takes 15 minutes, maybe 24 hours, legitimately.
Exactly.
My experience
Alaska is one of them.
Yeah, there are very few that actually have passed it, but Georgia did. But it's you can just tell the sort of the hunger, the thirst for some fiscal sanity in D.C. that Georgia, we were trying to pass anything we could to force the federal government to act, and we found the Article 5 process the only reasonable way to go at this point, But anyways, as a creature of the legislative branch, I can just tell you it is very difficult to reach consensus or agreement on precise language. And the realistic probability of 34 state legislatures all agreeing in advance on identical language is extremely unlikely. That's why I think working out the language at the convention itself is the most efficient way to get it done. It does leave some uncertainties for the states. You don't know the exact language that's going to come out, but you can give restrictions to your delegates and instructions to them and get it close. But it's just part of that process. They liken it to making sausage. It's an ugly process to do it, and at the end of the day, you come out with a bill that passes. And I'm afraid that it's going to be very hard to come up with the exact language in advance that many state legislatures will all agree is the perfect language.
But the point is, you only need 51% to pass the call and the delegate resolution.
Right. Yeah, but you're talking about 34 different states passing your countermand resolution.
But you have to have 38 states to ratify it.
Right.
You need.
You got to have 34 to propose it, to even present it to the states, and it has to have the same language. And what you're trying to do is get 34 states to agree on that exact language simultaneously. I mean, an independent action of 34 different states, and what's to say that all those different states are going to agree on the exact same language? It's just tough to make legislatures behave that way.
Well, the thing I would like to point out just about that is that there's no difference from the state legislatures approving it as to delegates getting in there with nothing pre-written, and they all sit there and try to write something and fight about it.
But they only do it once instead of having to be done 34 different times by 34 different bodies.
If I may, as something that we've seen this happen, I've seen this. I've sat down with my legislators here, and I've got a pretty diverse bunch of legislators, and every one of them that I've sat down with and handed that countermand amendment to, that has read it, I have not had any that even wanted to change a word. We did the same. We've done this out of the 15 states that we have sponsors on. There's only been 2 that talked about a slight change in Section 3, which they want to change it from 18 months to 24 months, and that's out of 20 some odd states that we've actually talked to that have all read that same amendment. We've had complete consensus with that, and that's probably, Sandy, we've probably talked to 60 some odd people in the process. So it can't. I understand it's a lift. I know we all know it's going to be a heavy lift. But I think that
doesn't say don't give it a try.
I think it's doable. And the beauty of it is, like we're saying, is when it gets down to that convention, we know that there might be, that some states are going to want to have a change here and there, a comma there, or whatever. But it's going to be minor comparatively.
The other thing I would like to comment upon is that we have had a lot of civilians, citizens reading this, and they love it.
That's great. That's good work.
People say, "Oh, that would be so wonderful to put a stop to what's going on. If you could repeal executive orders, bad treaties, Obamacare."
You're right.
Federal
The more President Obama abuses his power and oversteps the bounds of the presidency, the more we will have citizens wanting to fight back and push back against that. And I applaud your efforts. And Sandy, great as always to talk to you. I'm going to have to drop off now, but I'll leave the conversation with you all and any of your other guests.
Senator Cowsert, before you leave, I would like to, are there any meetings that I can come and speak to the legislators?
I'll make sure to let you know, Sandy, as soon as we have any. We go back in session on the second Monday in January, January the 12th, and we'll be in session for 40 days. That takes till about the end of March because we have some breaks in between committee days, and I will be on the lookout for good opportunities for you to speak, and I'll let you know.
And also Charles is planning on being in Georgia on the 6th of February, and because he's going to a lot of the state capitals to discuss this. So
tell him to make sure to give me a call when he gets there, and I'll be delighted to introduce him around.
Okay,
Are there any meetings prior to the legislature?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Cowsert. Okay. How close are we getting to the break? We got a little bit of time.
Yes, we've got about 10 minutes.
Well, I actually think we got farther than I thought we would with him.
It was a good discussion. And
it seems like it's always one state against the federal government. And with the Countermand Amendment, we've got a little bit of teamwork, and it's time for some teamwork. It's going to take more than one state. We can't just keep going and, we're going to sue you. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the courts are pretty much a waste of time. Because even if you win, they're going to come back at you again.
Well, and like what you sent me today, Kelly, on what Utah's doing. Where they're actually, they're going to actually push the envelope and physically take back their land.
Yeah.
And boot the feds off. That's
Colorado will be right
the concern. The big concern there is this going to be something that's going to get turned nasty, or is this going to be something that will enhance the other states wanting to get on board with the Countermand Amendment, so that all the states can do this together and tell the feds, no, by golly, we got 38 energy producing states, over 30 of them have had land grabs for far too long. We're taking our land back. We're taking our economy back. We're taking our resources back, and we can do it without bloodshed. Right. We can do it without judicial, fights and everything else. It's done.
Under the Constitution, the federal government is allowed 1% to 2% of any one state, not 67% of Alaska, not 88% of Nevada. And about Utah taking back their land like that, Colorado will be right behind them, Mike, because remember they had that huge oil find.
That's what's done. That is that 1.4 million acres that the feds yanked out from Utah and Colorado to protect a grouse.
Right.
And that was, I think, the final straw for Utah. My concern is with Colorado, they have a Democrat-controlled House and a Republican-controlled Senate, and then they still have a Democrat governor. Well, so what the hell happened out of Colorado? Don't know, but I know Utah's fighting back.
My mom's in Colorado, so watch out.
Good luck for her. So yeah, it's this Countermand Amendment, in deference to Senator Cowart, for the listener's knowledge, is that the key difference is that, as we said, we have a full session. We could even have 2 full sessions to work this through, to get 34 states to make the application in and of itself is easy, relatively, all things considered. What is going to be the heavier lift is going to be the Delegate Resolution and the Countermand Amendment. We get that. But then we would rather, I think the American public would rather see the state legislatures, through their normal deliberative process of developing an amendment like the Countermand Amendment or whatever amendment they want to talk about, and then sending that down. And it's like Kelly said, that way that when those delegates get down there, they know exactly what they're there for, and they got their pre-approved amendment right there in their hot little hands, and all they got to do then is run with it and pass it. And all they need is 26 states to pass it.
It was sure a little short argument. They've got it in front of them. They know what they're there to do, what they're there to discuss. It's going to save a lot of arguments.
We're having troubles hearing you, Kelly.
Is that any better?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry.
Are we getting close to break?
Yeah, we've got 4 minutes. Once we, when they show up in the chamber and they've got their work in front of them, it's just going to save so much time and so many arguments because it's already there for them, waiting.
Exactly.
And like I said it's always one state, trying to fend off the federal government. With that Countermand Amendment, it's going to teach the federal government how to have a few manners if they realize that, they're not going to be able to send down this horrible legislation like the EPA rules and regulations and the Obamacare and, they're going completely against what the people in the states want. It's just got to stop.
And Kelly is something, and it's something I've run into of late. I don't know if what you and Sandy have, when you've talked to U.S. congressmen or U.S. senators. But I've been talking to some of the congressmen of late. My congressman, Don Young, I talked to him in person on this. Every one of them that I've been talking to, that I've been telling them about what we're doing and about the Article 5 movement and the Countermand Amendment, guess what? I'm getting congressmen saying, do it. They love it.
Right.
They want it. They want that states to come back with that power to be able to take away that power of those that think that they're all powerful.
Well, that Countermand is a beautiful, brilliant piece of legislation, and fewer than 400 words, 8 short clauses. It can do so much for so many. I'm sure that once the legislators get a look at it, they're gonna see how beautiful and powerful it is.
Yep.
But we are down to about 1 minute. Again, I'd like to go ahead and invite everyone to visit our website at www.countermands.us. Go ahead and look around there. Click if you want to give us a hand. Go over there, volunteer. We can sure use help contacting our state legislators.
And don't forget, our director, Charles, is going to be going on the road visiting states, and we are really in need of funds to help him out.
Yes, there's also the donate button over there. Charles has got his new book out. And it's the Countermand Amendment, the missing piece of the Article 5 puzzle. Charles is a brilliant constitutionalist. That's great information for everyone to have. It'd make great Christmas gifts also. But we are going to go ahead and we're going to take a short station break, and then we will be right back with some more very interesting discussions.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
Why do cities shine so bright? It's the glow of opportunities, of ideas bouncing off one another, of countless people, every one of us, striving to succeed. Right now, in cities everywhere, ideas are being born. New thinking that will put us in awe of what people are capable of. That's what lights cities up. And helping people and their ideas to burn even brighter, so that communities, businesses, and you and I can grow. What if a bank made that its job? For more than 200 years, Citi's job has been to help empower people and business. Now, around the world, it's wherever people gather, wherever ideas come alive. It's wherever you are. The world's city.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my god. It's not even real, okay?
It's just a game.
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13. Now playing.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you stayed on so we could do some more talking and help everyone learn a little bit more about our Constitution and the founders and things. You know, what is really funny, when I was going into looking at George Mason, he really impressed me, besides being omniscient about some of these problems that he could see. When he was at the convention, he consistently spoke out in favor of the rights of individuals and the states as opposed to the federal government. He spoke out strongly against the 10-mile square federal district that ironically came to be located just a few miles from his home. Concerning the proposed District of Columbia, Mason said, "This 10-mile square may set at defiance the laws of the surrounding states and may become the sanctuary of the blackest crimes." Oh yes, we can say the blackest crimes are there. Here the federal courts are to sit. What sort of jury shall we have within the 10-mile square? The immediate creatures of government. He also spoke out in favor of popular elections, unrestricted admission of new western states. Did you hear that, Mike? Unrestricted admission. He did not want all these things put on that the federal government has done to the different states now. And he was in favor of a three-part executive branch. Anyway, he also abhorred the institution of slavery, and he was trying to get slavery to be abolished with the Constitution, but they did the compromise, so it continued, and he was very upset with that. And then the last thing was the Bill of Rights, and that was the last straw for him when it was not part of the new Constitution, was enough to sway the delegates. The convention also voted down Mason's proposal to hold a second convention. So, all along, I can see this man was way before his time in wanting the rights to protect the people and the states. And Kelly, what did you think about Mason? Because I know you looked at some of the things about him.
Well, I think it's interesting that he was a lifelong slaveholder. He wanted rid of slavery. So that's a little bit of a juxtaposition. But, yeah, an anti-federalist. Him and Patrick Henry. You know Patrick Henry's my favorite. And he and Mason were buddies, so... Yeah, I guess I would have to be on the anti-federalist. I'd be sitting at their table.
What did you think about him, Mike?
Actually, yeah, I just had to come off mute. I just had to come off mute there for a second.
Okay.
From what I read, it the thing that I really was impressed with is his foresight on the judiciary. I'm sure that beyond Mason, I'm sure that Madison and Jefferson and Washington and everybody else is rolling in their graves right now with our judiciary that is a legislative branch in and above themselves, and that's the way they're acting. I mean, it's legislation. It's legislation by judicial fiat. Where we have judges that tell states that had a lawful vote for a constitutional amendment, in our case in Alaska as well as others, that that marriage is between one man and one woman that is in our state constitution. 75% of the voting public during a general election came out and voted for that, and yet we have a judge that thinks that he's above the Constitution, he's above the people, he's above the sovereigns. We the people are the sovereigns, and then they turn around and do whatever they want to do. And the other thing from a judicial standpoint too, that with it, like kind of going back to this Countermand Amendment, is that the cost that the states are incurring, and I bet you Madison probably saw this coming too, the cost of that the states have in fighting the government, and fighting these judicial decisions, going all the way to the Supreme Court. I talked to a lawyer the other day, and I think he said something in the neighborhood of $250,000 just to get something all the way up to the Supreme Court. Well, who's got that kind of money? Not me. But yet when the states do it, like when the state of Alaska, has fought, and we went all the way up to the Supreme Court, well, that's $250,000 out of our pockets, because that was money from the taxpayers. That was money from business. The business taxes, the property, well, not the property taxes, but the business taxes here in Alaska, since we have zero income tax, our money is from predominantly 90% of it's the oil industry. So we were taking a whole lot of money to take something all the way to the Supreme Court. The Countermand Amendment could stop that, and it could tell those judges in no uncertain terms that when 30 states say that these judicial decisions that have denied our people our constitutional right of a state constitution that was duly done. We are now rescinding it. Then I think we're going to have judges that are going to be sitting back on their heels, and all it's going to take is a couple more punches, and they're going to be sitting there, and they will then do what they're there to do, and that is to judge criminal issues. That is there to judge, to make sure that somebody's civil liberties aren't being violated, and they're not there to legislate from the bench.
I know that's one of the things, that in looking at the countermand, and that's why I feel so strongly about it, is that there are so many problems right now that I don't care what kind of amendment, some of these other groups are proposing. I mean, any amendment can help a little bit. Like term limits, yeah, but it will take a couple of decades before any good will be derived from a term limit amendment. And we're getting at the critical stage with what's happening in this country. We can't just keep letting it go and letting it go and letting it go. And there is nothing that will do all this. When you think about all the things that are wrong today, I mean, everything from our light bulbs being controlled, and, I wish I would remember to mention to Senator Cowsert that part of the EPA regulations is that they now want to control the intrastate waterways. So they can come in and tell a farmer, oh, your pond doesn't meet our code, and you're going to have to spend a couple $100,000. And every day it's not done, we're going to fine you another $50,000. Because that's what they've been doing. And
term limits isn't going to address that.
Yeah, right. What are they going to do to stop it? That's what gets me. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, please, folks, you better start looking at what's happening in the real world,
Well, we can get that countermand through. We can make our call. There's nothing stopping us from going ahead and making the next call. As long as it's just the single issue, we can put in our call for the countermand. And the next day we can put in our call for the term limits. We can put in our call for the balanced budget the day after that. The trick is that they just need to be separate conventions, separate issues. We can't, I don't see how we can go in and discuss, 500 people go and sit down in a room and they're going to write the balanced budget reigning in government term limit amendment. I just don't see that happening.
No, I don't think so either.
I really...
No, what they're going to do is, if they do this method like the COS has talked about doing, where they have all these subjects, and now they come up with, let's say, 7 amendments that they want to put out, okay? Now, the states are going to have to ratify all these. They're going to be fighting forever because they're not going to have things pre-written. And they're going to fight over every word. The liberal states are going to be fighting tooth and neck to stop them and coming up with everything to keep the convention that way.
Well, that's the brilliance of the countermand, is that it can do everything that those 7 amendments they're trying to get through does. In 400 words. We don't need 7 or 10 amendments. If we can just get our states a little bit of teamwork, we can countermand so much wrong that's going on with our states. Just a little teamwork.
Yeah, and then, and on top of that, if you... And this is something where I went to a dinner last night, and we had Steve Moore from Wall Street Journal was the speaker, And the applause was deafening when he talked about getting rid of the Department of Energy. Did the same thing happen when he talked about that we need to get rid of the Department of Education, and the same thing he was talked about when we get rid of the EPA. Think about this, folks. If 30 states, and we could consider the fact that there's 38 energy-producing states that are all being adversely impacted by the EPA and the Department of Energy. All you need is 30 of those energy-producing states to repeal the Department of Energy, repeal the Department of Environmental Protection Agency, and all the rules and all the regulations thereof. How much money is that going to save us, the taxpayers? I would venture to say, just strictly a pure guess, that if you got rid of those three, education, energy, and EPA, that would save the federal government in the neighborhood of probably $500 billion. We're in debt right now, $18 trillion. $500 billion is a good first step at least. And then, as we save this money by these regulatory, by repealing regulations, repealing departments that are not needed, then at the same time, the states are telling our congressmen and our senators that work for us and work for the states that, okay, now with this savings of $1 trillion that we just saved you because we just got rid of all these things, you're not going to spend any more money. You're going to start. You're not going to take that money and give it to something else. No. Because if you do, we're going to countermand it. And then that's where it may be and if we continue running into a bunch of hotheads that want to fight it, okay, fine. Come up with a balanced budget amendment. But now we're at a balanced budget amendment where we're spending a whole lot less too.
Well, and the other thing is, once the EPA gets their paws off of the state resources, the states are going to be a lot better off. And I don't know why they think that they can come in and tell a state how they can best conserve and take care of their land when they don't even know anything about the state.
Well, look at the tax revenue that will come in with the jobs that are going to be created by the opening up of those lands. And those lands now are going to be open for mining, for oil, for agriculture, for building factories, or any number of things that could be done, all of which are jobs, all of which is income into people's pocket, and all of it is unfortunately taxable. Now we just got to look at going to a flat tax, and now we're in the best of all worlds. But that would be a huge revenue source to the federal government to do what they need to do to protect us, which is their primary goal. The primary duty under the Constitution is defense of this nation. So we could get a military and a defense department that's back up to speed, back up to ability to protect us, and by golly, let's bring our troops home that we don't need over in Germany and Japan and those places, and put them on the border, and shut that border down. We don't need a fence. All we need is the 101st Airborne, the 82nd Infantry, some Air Force pilots flying over the top of it. So I'll throw in some Navy guys going up and down the Rio Grande, and we got that baby shut down.
That is a fact. Just from the experience that I've had down here, all it takes is someone looking at them from our side of the river, and they change their mind. They won't even try it if they see someone waiting on the other side of the river.
Especially somebody that's armed on the other side of that river.
Especially. But, and we're neighbors. We hopefully we'll learn to be good neighbors. But at this point, I'm not very happy with Mexico. And it's not just the Mexicans that are coming across. They're allowing people to come all the way up through Mexico from Central America, South America. And these are some not very nice people that are coming across our border. I'm not concerned about women and children.
Pakistan, Afghanistan.
Yeah, I'm not.
All those bad places too.
A woman or child is going to cut my head off. And that's what all the news says. Oh, it's just the little women and the little children. No, America, it is not women and children. My sheriff here said less than 30% are actually women and children. So we have a big problem, and this problem has been going on for a long time. We're heavily infiltrated. But that's getting off the topic. Yeah, don't get me started on the border.
But anyway, what I really want to reiterate to everybody is to support us and call your legislators, get the links for the Countermand Amendment, and tell them, they need to support this. Because there aren't enough of us to go sit in every office of every legislator across the country. We just can't do that. So it would be nice if we could get some help.
Yeah, visit that website. Drop us a line. Let us know how you can help. We'll be happy to get a hold of you. And there's always something that we can do. There's plenty for everyone to do. And it's fun, and it's fulfilling. It's very important work. It's very important work.
And it's educational. You talk to these ladies and gentlemen that we have hired to go down and listen to long summations of issues. I mean, I've sat there and I've watched the last legislature when we were talking about the natural gas line from Prudhoe Bay down to Tidewater. My eyes crossed. My mind went in complete fog, and I just kind of short circuited. Because I didn't understand. I couldn't. It was like on and on and on, and numbers and. Millions here and millions there and this and that. And it's like, and we send these guys down there because, we hire them to do this stuff for us. And they're smart. I mean, they are some of the smartest people that you'll ever meet. They're people, they're humans, they're us. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty. Are you
sure about that?
Well, the ones, at least the ones I can't say for all, but the ones that I've met, and even so, even people like Representative Josephson, who's probably so far to the left, he's on my right shoulder, but even I learned from them too. I mean, it may be I learned their negatives and how to get around some of those negatives, but still, it's always a learning experience when you talk to these people. And it's like my representative here that's sponsoring, our Countermand Amendment. We had a lively discussion last night a couple nights ago, and she had some ideas on what she wanted me to do, and I was like, oh boy, it wasn't stuff I never even thought of before. But she's always thinking about 5 steps, 5 plays ahead. And that's why I hired her for it. That's why I voted for her. Because I'm her employer, and the employee is in there doing the job.
Well, and our state legislators are getting tired of this. Just like us, like you said, the regular people. We are all so tired of this overreach. And I really feel that the federal government also needs to get out of our education system. I'm not pleased with what's been going on with the Common Core at all either.
Oh, there's a big fight up here as well on that. But kind of going back to those people, when was the last time that and this talk to the audience, when was the last time that you were walking down a supermarket, and buying your groceries and ran into your U.S. senator or ran into your U.S. Congressman? You don't. That doesn't going to happen. You may get to go to a town hall meeting with them on occasion, if they ever come home to do it. But how many times did you, in small, close-knit communities, where you're walking down and you run into your state legislator, your state senator, your state representative? They're the people that are closest to us, and those are the people that matter, and they can make things happen, especially with this Countermand Amendment and Article 5.
That I would love for everyone to please go and visit that website at www.countermand.us. We have 15 sponsors now for the Countermand Amendment. We're making some really, really good excellent progress. Sure use some more help. The more people we have, the faster we can get this through. That the Countermand Amendment, it's going to do so much for so many states and handle so many different issues. Executive orders, the federal court decision, the budget. We can put until budget. We can put them on on notice that no, you can't spend that. You're not going to put our grandchildren in debt like that. We can get rid of the EPA, BLM, IRS, the agencies. I call them the alphabet agencies that are pretty much a waste of time. And Obamacare, oh my goodness, the Affordable Care Act. I know we've got 30 states who would gladly countermand that.
We had 29 states that filed suit against it. All you needed one more.
Well, I know that we've had the 17 that filed was for the immigration. But yeah, that's just it, Mike. I mean, that's all we're doing is, okay, well, we're going to sue you. We're going to sue you. And this is time consuming. It's a waste of money. Where we can just step up 30 states, say, no, that's it. Take it back to the drawing board. It's not going to work for us. And that's it. There's not going to be any coming back at the one single state with a lawsuit, because if they want to do that, they're going to have to come at all 30 states. And that's going to like a little child, it's going to modify their behavior.
Well, and on that note, I know we're down to about 3 minutes to go, but on that note, once this Countermand Amendment is ratified, if anybody were to go after the states for countermanding a particular rule, regulation, or law, under Articles Section 5 and 6, they're now subject to 5 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And as I like to say up here, Sally Jewell tried to pull a stunt like that with Eisenbeck Road after we take back our lands. Come on up to Alaska, young lady. You're now being extradited. You're going before a state Alaska judge instead of in front of Alaskan jury, and you can spend 5 years down at Seward Correctional Facility, right with the maximum security guys. I think she'd enjoy that.
Yeah. Sounds like quite the vacation. Not.
And Seward is not a nice place. It's rainy. It's miserable.
The federal government is getting by with so much, and they're not having to face any consequences for their actions and not following the Constitution and breaking their oath. So we have to come up with something. This can't continue, because my country is in a lot of trouble, and I really feel that the countermand is I think it may save our collective fannies. But we are at a station break right now. Please visit the website, www.countermands.us. Drop us a line. Let us know if you'd like to give us a hand, or if you need any more information. We'll be happy to help. We'll be right back after this short message. Thank you.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
Citigold is an account from a global bank with over 200 years experience, offering international banking expertise across over 100 markets. Your dedicated investment consultant adds a unique personal touch to your banking experience. Complimentary lifestyle offers like Marhaba service and free global money transfers help you save on time and money. At the core of Citigold is your dedicated relationship manager, personally looking after your financial needs. Be it lifestyle privileges like golf, lounge access across the Middle East, or worldwide privileges, Citigold provides you with a rewarding experience. One card is all you need for all your Citibank accounts. As a Citigold client, you benefit from our international expertise and global reach. Citigold is more than an account. It's a personal banking service offering exceptional privileges, customer service and recognition worldwide. So wherever you are, Citigold will be with you.
The Ouija board has existed for centuries. It is used to communicate with the dead.
If there's a presence here, please make yourself known. This is a joke. Oh my God. It's not even real, okay?
Ouija.
We're saying goodbye!
Rated PG-13.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
These guys are morons! I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13. Now playing.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for staying tuned. This is the State Legislators Roundtable with Sandy Toth, Mike Coons, and my name is Kelly Gordon from Texas. And we're here discussing the Countermand Amendment. Our national director is not with us today because he is traveling across the country right now, visiting state legislators and having community meetings and raising awareness about this brilliant piece of legislation called the Countermand Amendment. Mike, have you got some information on where Charles is right now?
Well, right now he's in North Carolina, is at his home area there. They're having I'm understanding that his local church is having a fundraiser for him, and he's talking about the Countermand Amendment and, of course, his book. And one of the things that he told me the other day that he's wanting to do is for those folks that, he would like to see folks get these books and get them, make a donation of it's $20 for per book, and then donating those books to as many state legislatures as they can afford. So if you can afford $100, that would be 5 books that you could give to your state legislatures so that they could read up on the Countermand Amendment and Article 5 and the history of Article 5 that he has in his book. And that would go just as go a long ways. Then his first appearance is going to be in Concord, New Hampshire. That's going to be on the 12th of it's either the 11th or the 12th of December. He's going to be meeting with the legislators up there. We're in the process of getting him to Mississippi on the 15th of December. And then he goes to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where he's going to have a really lively meeting with some really good Cajun folks down there. And they're going to be discussing this. We got two outstanding senators that are sponsoring this, that he's going to down there and work with and help get this thing through. And then, of course, he's been invited to Cajun country that next day to partake of good Cajun food. I envy him a lot. And then Arkansas, he's going to be at Little Rock on the 23rd of December. And then he's coming home. He'll be home for Christmas. And then he's going back out again. And then he's going to drive. This thing you need to understand in the audience. This gentleman is in his 70s, and he's going to be driving a Jeep across the nation. And that's right now he's going to be staying at truck stops and going to legislators. And his first place he's going to after Christmas is Bismarck, North Dakota. And he's from North Carolina. So pray for him on his driving abilities. I know he's originally from New Jersey, but he's been down in the South too long, probably doesn't know how to drive in bad weather. And then he goes to Pierre, South Dakota on the 7th of January, then going on over to Wyoming, Nebraska, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio by the middle of February. So he needs support. He needs gas money. He needs money for hotels, which would be more preferable than sleeping in the back of the Jeep. And so he is refreshed and ready to go and get this message out to the legislators and get this thing passed.
He is 103% dedicated to getting this message out because it is so powerful and it's going to save our collective fannies, people. The Countermand Amendment is so brilliant, such a wonderful piece of legislation. It's going to allow 30 states to step up and say, hey, we don't want Obamacare. Hey, your court ruling that's not what our state wants. The EPA rules and regulations, those are ridiculous. You're killing our industry. We can't have those. 30 states, a little teamwork, like I said, and we can step up there. We can turn this thing around. We can get this ship out of these dire straits and into safe harbor again and get this country back on track, back with some American exceptionalism. We've forgotten what it's like to be Americans. It's so important. And where did Miss Sandy go? I think she's having some problems with her microphone, perhaps. But yeah, that Countermand Amendment, it's going to allow 60% of our state legislatures to rescind any federal law or regulatory ruling that's burdensome to their state.
Well, and let's maybe Kelly, let's maybe kind of throw some examples of maybe some of the countermands that could come out of this once it's ratified. Do you think that would be a good idea?
Sure.
So I want to talk from an Alaskan standpoint, but it impacts everybody because economics is economics. When I was working as a paramedic, I was up on the North Slope of Alaska, and the very first rig that I was on was Pool 6 up on the Alpine oil field, and I mean, We're talking, folks, out in the middle of nowhere. It's miles and miles of white, and maybe a few caribou, and you sure as heck don't want to see polar bear. And I was talking to the superintendent, and this is back in about 1995. So you got to kind of bear with me on some of the figures, but the basis still remains the same. Because of EPA regulations, because of government regulations, because of the Department of Interior regulations, because of OSHA standards and OSHA safety standards and all those things, it was taken at that point in time. It was costing that oil company $14 for every barrel of oil that they brought up. Now, this was an exploratory well, so they weren't doing production. This was just finding the oil. So if they got a barrel of oil, it was going to cost them $14 a barrel to get that barrel of oil up. At the time, oil was selling for $14 a barrel. So how can a company make a profit on that? You can't. But they were out there doing it because they knew that the prices always fluctuate, but they were, of course, they were hoping that the prices would go up. But then at the same time, shortly after that, about a year or so, I ended up going over to Russia. I was over on Sakhalin Island on the western portion of Russia. And Marathon, I was working with Marathon over there, and they had oil rigs that the Russians were using for exploratory wells and getting production wells off the north end of the Sakhalin Island. The cost for a barrel of oil that Marathon was shelling out, I believe, don't hold me to this, but if my memory serves me, I believe it was something like $6 a barrel. Now, would it be better to stay in the United States and pay $14 a barrel in EPA rules and regulations and OSHA regulations, or would it be simpler to go over to another country and not have those EPA regulations and OSHA regulations, and only thing that you have to worry about is your equipment at $6 a barrel? Kind of a duh situation. The Countermand Amendment, when 30 states, and remember there's 38 energy producing states out there, when they turn around and say enough's enough, we could repeal a lot of those EPA rules and regulations that don't have any impact other than making the environmental people happy. It has no impact at all on the safety of those rigs. It has no impact on the safety on that ground or anything. It's just all because that's what the environmentalists want. Can you imagine the cost of oil plummeting just because now we don't have to, the oil industry isn't shelling out these outrageous amounts in fees and regulatory costs? And now we can get down to brass tacks and effectively get gasoline back into the $1.50 a gallon, where it should be. That's just one aspect. Kelly, I'm sure you got others.
Well, what strikes me is that the EPA and the federal land grabs, they really annoy me, because I do feel that they've gotten land theft down to an art, because so many times the property, the land that they're trying to get control of, underneath that land are very valuable resources that the state could be using in order to better themselves. And remember when we had the representative from Texas, Representative White, and he told us that they did a study where Texas went ahead and shut down all the coal mines, shut down all the coal, and it still wasn't good enough to satisfy the EPA rules and regulations. So, I mean, it's like they're playing it's a control game. I mean, we've done the research. We can do everything. We can shut down all of the coal, and it's still not going to be good enough.
And it gets worse. And we've heard this before too, Kelly, is that the environmental groups, the PETAs, the Greenpeace, whatever, file suit against the federal government, or i.e. the EPA, because they're upset about, you got this little 1-inch worm that nobody's ever heard of before. There's probably a couple billion of them out there, but oh my God, it says the first time we've ever seen them, they might be an endangered species. So they go to the EPA, they file suit, and instead of going to court, they go behind closed doors. And remember, justice is supposed to be transparent. Not in this case, because they go behind closed doors with the EPA, and they hammer out a negotiation with them. And they negotiate, and the EPA goes, yeah, we can do this for you, we can do that for you. And the EPA then comes up with new rules and regulations to appease the Greenpeace, and it never sees the light of day. It never sees a judge. It never sees a jury. It never sees the peer review of the American citizen. And next thing you know, you have 10 new rules and regulations coming out of the EPA that do nothing to really protect the land and the resources, and everything to do with power for the environmentalist movement, and in total partnership with the EPA and the United States government.
Unelected bureaucrats writing the rules and regs.
Exactly. Not our Congress, not our senators.
And
I mean, what's that? You know, the deal on PBS about how do you write a bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I loved what SLN did the other day. And I'm not a big SLN fan, but I thought that was really funny.
But one example, how about when we spoke to our representative in Missouri, and he told us how the EPA was trying to, are you ready for this, protect an invasive species.
And make sure you remind people what invasive species means. It's important.
Well, I was going to be sarcastic when you said that, because you know exactly where I'm going with this. We have invasive species coming across the border. But an invasive species is not supposed to be where it is, and it's causing damage to the environment. And for some reason, the EPA thinks that they need to protect this invasive species, which...
And it was a fish.
Yeah, sort of a fish. And it was a mussel. And it just, just doesn't make sense at all, other than to use it as an excuse to take control of a property. And once again, the federal government, under the Constitution, is only allowed 1% to 2% of any state, and that is for important, needful things, like, docks and ports and forts and things like that, post roads. It's not to control your national resources. It's not to take control of your national parks and tell your people of your state, no, you can't come in here anymore. That isn't how things are supposed to work.
Well, and Sandy brought this up a little bit earlier, but I'd like to expand on it just a little bit. There was a gentleman, I think this is still going on. There was a gentleman, I believe, in Wyoming, has a house and some land, has a creek going through his land, and so he decided that he wanted to build a pond. And utilizing that creek water to do so. So he goes out there and he goes to Wyoming, he goes to the Department of Environmental Conservation, he goes to their Department of Natural Resources, he goes to all the different permitting places, he gets his permits, he gets his approvals, he does up the plans, and he gets all the approvals from the state. He goes out and he builds himself this nice pond, puts some fish in it, some Wyoming fish, not invasive species, but Wyoming fish. So his kids can do some fishing. He's got a watering hole now for his horses and his cattle. He's got a place he can go out. The kids can go out and swim in, and just have himself, and on his property have a nice little recreational area right there that him and his family can enjoy for their lifetime and their kids' lifetime and their grandkids' lifetime. And the EPA came in and said, "Oh no, you can't do that. You didn't come through us. You didn't get permission from us, and you have water seeping out of this pond that was percolating back through the ground back to the creek." And so they considered that hazardous runoff from this pond that was being fed by this creek that was going back into the same creek. And then they're hitting him with $7,500 a day in fines. $7,500 a day.
That's got to stop.
And that is where what the state of Wyoming, in conjunction with the state of Idaho, and in conjunction with the state of North Dakota and South Dakota and Nebraska and Iowa and New Mexico and Arizona and Nevada and Alaska and the southern states, right on down the line, get 30 states, and you could tell the EPA no more.
Well, we could even do better than that. We could end the EPA. Just go ahead and
yes.
I mean, think of all the money we would save right there paying those unelected bureaucrats because they're causing the states too many problems. I mean, the guise was that they were going to come in and they're going to help. And I don't see this as helpful whatsoever, especially when the states, we as Americans, we love our country. We're not here to destroy it. We don't need a babysitter telling us what we can and can't do.
Exactly.
I mean, what was it at the Bundy Ranch? They're all upset about that turtle. Come to find out, the Bureau of Land Management was actually euthanizing that same turtle they were saying that they were protecting. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. That's very shady. Very shady.
Exactly. And another example on the Countermand Amendment, and Kelly, we would definitely be remiss in not bringing this one up because this is one of Charles's favorites, and I'm sure and I know it's one of yours too, is Roe v. Wade.
Right.
We could that 30 states,
100
and beyond the fact that this is about unborn children and unborn lives that have been taken. But the other aspect of it is, just from a quote-unquote legal standpoint, it's a 10th Amendment issue. So if 30 states, I'm sure, and I know that there are 30 states out there that would countermand that in a heartbeat, just on the aspect that the Supreme Court violated their state under the 10th Amendment. Now, that's not to say that after that happens, if New York wants to continue with abortion on demand, that's what they would probably do, and that would be their state right under the 10th Amendment to do. However, those states that do those kind of things, they're going to have repercussions, but they're just going to have to live with those repercussions. Unfortunately, those babies that are being taken at that point, they're not going to. They get the ultimate repercussion, but Roe v. Wade could be gone.
Absolutely. I mean, we lost 3,200 babies today alone, and that's an outrage. That's war. I mean, that's more soldiers than we lost today.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's more. I think that's more soldiers than we lost in Afghanistan since we've been in Afghanistan.
Right. And that is very Charles's heart.
I think Charles was made the point the other day that there have been more abortions than there was soldiers dying in Vietnam, and I would probably say Vietnam and Korea combined. So yeah, Sandy, you trying to get in?
Did you hear me now?
Now we got it.
I've been yelling for 10 minutes.
Something is wrong with your mic, my dear. Well, you have 5 minutes, girl, so tear it up.
Okay, well, one of the things I wanted to point out about what happened to that couple with the pond is they had gotten all their local permits, the county and the state thought everything was fine, but this is what the EPA ruling has done now, where they can control the intrastate, where they can come in and you can have a lake or a pond or some little stream going through your property, and they can tell you what to do with it. We are losing our rights so rapidly that it's incredible.
They do not have the right to come in and just say, okay, well, this is your property, but we're going to tell you what you can do here.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do, Kelly, want to just say a brief prayer, just to keep Charles.
That's right. The work that we do here at Citizen Initiatives, we do pray over this work.
So, we can just talk a little bit afterward, but I would just like to ask the Lord for help and guidance, to give us the wisdom to get the Countermand Amendment through before our country is destroyed. Help us in our work and lead us in the right path. We're trying hard, but I know we make mistakes. But we're leaning on you for help, Lord. May God bless Charles and his family, and Kelly and her family, and Mike and his family. They've been working hard, and they need to keep on going until we have the success we need. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, Charles, you can't fault me. I followed through on everything.
And that's where we have come into so many problems, is that we have turned away from our Christian heritage and our Christian teachings, and living by the 10 Commandments, and honor thy father and thy mother, and don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't kill.
Well, look what's happening with all the riots.
Exactly.
My goodness. And you hear these people, these high school kids, we're taunting the police. There's no respect for authority anymore. And who do they think is going to help them when somebody breaks in their house and tries to rape them?
We have failed.
It's going to be the police, but they don't respect the authority of the police.
Or what?
And it all started. I could really pinpoint it back when they took prayer out of the schools, because as a little girl, we would have a reading from the Bible. We would say the Lord's Prayer in the class, and then we would pledge allegiance to the flag. And that was like clockwork all the way through until I graduated from high school. And when this started going all the way from the schools, I'm going, my goodness, because this is a place where children can learn a little bit, actually learn. There is a Bible, and you can read something out of it, and you get used to saying the Lord's Prayer, and it becomes a part of you after a while. And we need more of that.
And then with this last minute to go too, I saw at Ferguson where anarchists had burnt the American flag in front of the National Guardsmen.
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
they came across and to recover what was left. And this guy goes, "It's just a piece of cloth." And the guardsman said, "It's ours. It's our flag." And the disdain for those people that they showed those National Guardsmen was I took my hat off to those guys for not punching their lights out.